A woman named Jill had gone out for a simple walk at the iJams Nature Center in Knoxville, hoping to clear her head after a stressful day.
This dude's just sitting here staring at me.
But her peaceful stroll quickly turned unsettling when she noticed a man following her.
He gave me a weird feeling.
Nervous but determined, Jill pulled out her phone and started recording, sending the video to a friend just in case something happened.
He went out on that overlook right there.
For 10 long minutes, the man didn't leave, adjusting his position in ways that made her uneasy.
I realized that nobody was coming.
When he approached her directly, she let out a scream. A couple nearby came to check, but Jill knew she couldn't rely on them. Using a stick for protection, she bravely chased the man out of the park, refusing to let fear take over. Her video went viral, helping authorities identify and capture him. Luckily, she managed to get away. But if she hadn't, terrifying. A group of friends were filming their hike through dense, grassy forest terrain. As they chatted, the camera captured something unusual in the background, something none of them noticed at the time. Moving between the trees, a large humanoid figure appeared. It looked slightly hunched, taking long, deliberate strides as it walked through the forest. From its posture and the way it moved, some viewers say it closely resembles the classic descriptions of Sasquatch. Meanwhile, the friends continued walking, completely unaware that this massive presence had just passed so close by. In February 2003, a YouTuber named Fur Boots and a few friends had just moved to England. They were fascinated with the paranormal. One evening, they began wandering the streets of London, asking strangers where they might find the most haunted place nearby. Eventually, an older man pointed them toward an abandoned psychiatric hospital. When they arrived, the building had already been demolished. Still determined to experience something strange, the group kept walking for hours. Eventually, they found themselves at Rodding Valley Park. They spent the night there talking, smoking, and taking a few photos as they sat around the park. At first, everything seemed completely normal, but later in the night, they suddenly felt the temperature drop. Two of them began shivering uncontrollably. During that moment, one of them took a photo while sitting on a bench. At first glance, the picture looked ordinary. When they later increased the brightness and contrast, they noticed something unsettling. A faint, indistinct figure appeared in the frame. Even years later, none of them had been able to explain what they captured that night. A man captured this video while hiking, holding what appears to be a leaf in his hand. At least, that's what it looks like at first. Moments later, tiny legs begin to emerge, and the leaf twitches as if it's alive. Of course, insects like this do exist, but some people believe this video might be AI generated. What do you think? Two friends were walking home through the dense woods of northern Mexico when something caught their attention. From behind a tree, a pair of glowing eyes stared straight at them. They froze for a moment, filming the eerie sight, before adrenaline took over and they ran as fast as they could. It didn't feel like an animal. To them, it moved far too human-like. Two friends visited a nature park filled with deer. When one of them started recording, they accidentally captured a strange clip that left many viewers scratching their heads. The video begins normally, with a deer calmly sniffing the woman. Then, something odd happens. A second deer suddenly steps into view from behind her, seemingly coming out of nowhere. Some people say it's simply the result of a unique camera angle, but others wonder, shouldn't the deer have been visible somewhere earlier in the footage? So how do you explain this strange illusion? TikTok user Eric Hunter 1 was simply heading home one night along a quiet forest road when his dashcam captured something unsettling. As he drove through the park, his headlights caught a figure dressed entirely in white crossing the road in front of him. What unsettled him wasn't just the clothing, but the movement. The figure didn't appear to walk, it seemed to glide, almost hovering just above the pavement as it crossed toward the woods. Moments later, it emerged again from the darkness, and then the video abruptly ends. Some viewers believe the footage shows something paranormal, others suspect it was a staged trick. but without more footage, no one knows for sure. In the early hours of May 14, 2008, 19-year-old Brandon Swanson was driving home in rural Minnesota after finishing a night of classes at Minnesota West Community and Technical College. Somewhere along the dark country roads between Marshall and his hometown of Canby, Brandon's car slid off the gravel road and ended up stuck in a ditch. He wasn't injured. At around 1:54 a.m., Brandon called his parents and explained what happened. Because he couldn't free the car, he decided to walk toward what he believed were the lights of the nearby town of Lind, while keeping his parents on the phone so they could find him. For nearly 47 minutes, they stayed connected. As Brandon walked through the darkness, he described what he was seeing: fences, fields, gravel roads, and uneven terrain. Meanwhile, his parents drove around the area trying to locate him, flashing their headlights and calling his name. Then at about 2:30 a.m., as he continued walking, Brandon suddenly said 2 words: "Oh shit," and the call went silent. His parents tried calling back immediately, but Brandon never answered. The next day, authorities located his Chevy Lumina stuck in a ditch along a rural road near Taunton, Minnesota, far from where he believed he was. Search teams, helicopters, tracking dogs, and hundreds of volunteers combed the farmland, gravel roads, and nearby rivers. Tracking dogs followed Brandon's scent for a distance, until it abruptly stopped near the Yellow Medicine River. Despite extensive searches over the years, no trace of Brandon Swanson has ever been found. His disappearance became so significant that Minnesota later passed Brandon's Law, requiring law enforcement to take missing adult cases seriously when there are signs of danger. More than 15 years later, the mystery remains. What caused Brandon to shout those final words? Did he fall into the river, encounter someone, or something else entirely? We may never know. If you have any information about this case that could help bring closure to Brandon's family, please contact the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office in Minnesota. This hiker was exploring a remote forest trail somewhere in the United States. He had gone out alone, hoping to enjoy a quiet walk and capture some peaceful nature footage. For a while, everything seemed calm, but suddenly he heard rustling in the distance. Curious, he turned his camera toward the sound, and that's when he captured this. Moving between the trees, only a short distance away, a dark figure could be seen walking upright. It appeared large and moved quickly through the forest. The hiker tried to follow it, but within seconds, the figure slipped deeper into the woods and vanished. Reddit user Disastrous AD1150 shared a story from decades ago in Niantic, Connecticut, dating back to October 1979. His uncle was riding with his grandmother to wrestling practice, traveling along a quiet road beside the Niantic River, when she suddenly stopped the car and took this photo. Years later, after she passed away, the family discovered the picture tucked away among her belongings. When her grandson first saw it, he didn't know what to make of the strange object visible in the sky. Some people argue it could simply be a frisbee or even a hubcap caught mid-air. But according to the family, his grandmother was known as a very practical, no-nonsense person, not someone who would stop her car just to throw something into the air and photograph it. And that's what makes the old snapshot so unsettling. It was taken by someone who had no reason to stage anything. So was it just an ordinary object caught at the perfect moment, or did that photo capture something far more extraordinary in the sky that day? TikTok user Big Photography shared a chilling clip reportedly sourced from the dark web. In it, a man filmed his friend perched high on a tree branch, calling out and urging him to come down. At first it seemed like a normal prank, but soon unease crept in. Their movements were strange, jerky, and almost impossible to explain. As panic set in, one friend began to pray, while the other kept the camera rolling. When the friend finally climbed down, relief should have followed, but instead, this happened. Standing before them wasn't their friend at all. Had a dark force possessed him, or was the entire video just a prank? Two cavers were navigating a narrow limestone passage known as the Z-Bend, a notoriously tight Z-shaped squeeze inside Pettyjohn's Cave on Pigeon Mountain, Georgia. This popular, wild cave is known for being extremely muddy and cold, around 56 degrees Fahrenheit. The first caver entered feet first, lying on his belly, and warned the second about the tight squeeze ahead. The second caver followed, this time on his back. As he reached the bend, the limestone seemed to close in around him. His chest was pressed tight against the walls, each breath growing more difficult. Panic set in quickly when he realized he could neither move forward nor back. The others heard his desperate calls for help. A rescue began immediately. One teammate pushed from behind, while another tried to pull him from the front. The stone walls were unforgiving, resisting every effort to free him. Unfortunately, there were no further updates on what happened next, so I'm hoping they got out. Reddit user Agreeable Storage 895 shared a video of a road tunnel that looks ordinary at first glance. But once you realize how tight it really is, it becomes unsettling. The tunnel cuts straight through a mountain with barely enough room for a single vehicle to pass. There's no shoulder to pull over to, no safe space if something goes wrong inside. Just narrow rock walls closing in on both sides, and it raises an uncomfortable question. What would happen if a collapse occurred while you were driving through it? Would you dare to enter this tunnel? A man named Tim Gallivan was spending a winter afternoon at a national park with his family when he decided to snap a few photos. Nothing felt unusual at the time, but after the family returned home and began looking through the pictures, Tim noticed something he hadn't seen in person. Behind one of the trees stood what appeared to be a tall brown figure. The shape didn't seem to blend naturally with the surrounding trees. Tim became convinced he had captured a Sasquatch, but others suggested it was simply a tree formation and a classic case of pareidolia. So what do you think? In September 2021, 31-year-old Joel Curtis Thomason set out on what was supposed to be a peaceful solo hiking and fishing trip in Yosemite National Park, California. He had planned to hike from Hetch Hetchy to Lake Eleanor and back over the course of a few days. Joel's last confirmed sighting came around 5 p.m. on September 6th, when a park ranger saw him crossing above O'Shaughnessy Dam. After that, he simply vanished into the wilderness. Despite massive search efforts involving the National Park Service and rescue teams, no trace of Joel or his belongings has ever been recovered. His family holds out hope, but he remains missing to this day, leaving behind a wife and young son. No one knows what happened to him. A man decided to spend the night alone in a forest long rumored to be haunted. He pitched his tent and built a small fire as darkness fell. But then, he heard this. A distant, muffled crying. He shone his flashlight around, but the woods remained empty. Brushing it off, he tried to relax. Moments later, footsteps echoed nearby, and his tent began to shake. He reviewed the footage using what he thought was thermal imaging, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever had been there. But without a real thermal camera, the images were inconclusive. The unease grew, so he left the area, still unsure of what had been there with him. A man was out in the woods one night when he captured a strange and unsettling sight. Above the tree line, a round, flat object hovered silently, glowing a bright orange. Then, slowly, it began to descend, slipping between the trees and disappearing from view. It definitely looked like something extraterrestrial, but there could be other explanations. Still, if you were alone in the woods and saw this, it would be hard not to believe otherwise. In June 2016, Floyd E. Roberts III, a 52-year-old experienced hiker from Treasure Island, Florida, set out with friends on a 9-day backpacking trip deep in Grand Canyon National Park. On the first day, near a place called Kelly Tank, Roberts and his group briefly split up to navigate a steep hill. When his companions reached the other side, he was gone. He was last seen walking toward a canyon trail, possibly heading for Trail Canyon or 209 Mile Canyon. Despite massive search efforts by park rangers, helicopter teams, and ground crews covering miles of harsh terrain, no trace of Roberts or his gear has ever been found. The area is remote, unforgiving, and filled with steep drops and hidden ravines, any one of which could hide a clue or swallow it entirely. What really happened to him on that trail is still a mystery. Reddit user Big Poppy Thunder shared a video of a strange event that happened in his own backyard. He and his dog were casually walking through the yard when the dog suddenly started barking at something that wasn't immediately visible.
Stop barking, bud.
At first, nothing seemed unusual, but at the beginning of the footage, the man accidentally captured something strange. A shadow suddenly streaked across the yard, moving so fast that he didn't even notice it while filming. Moments later, something even stranger appears. A vague humanoid figure can be briefly seen peeking out from behind a tree, almost as if it was watching them. Whatever it was, the dog seemed to sense something as well. In 2011, police in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia, arrested Anatoly Yurievich Moskvin, a well-educated linguist and cemetery expert. At first, he seemed like any other academic. Moscow State University graduate, spoke multiple languages, obsessed with burial rituals. But behind his quiet life with his elderly parents was something far stranger. In his apartment, investigators found dozens of life-sized dolls dressed in children's clothes, only to realize they were mummified bodies of girls and young women he had exhumed from local cemeteries. Moskvin had spent years digging up graves, drying and preserving the bodies, and treating them like living companions, celebrating birthdays, watching cartoons, even giving them names. To his parents, the figures just looked like large dolls among his collection. He claimed he wanted to rescue the children, hoping science or magic might one day restore them to life. A psychiatric evaluation diagnosed severe paranoid schizophrenia, and in 2012 a Russian court ruled him unfit to stand trial. He has remained in compulsory psychiatric care ever since. The case shocked the world. Why would someone so brilliant do something so chilling? In the early 1990s, a lone urban explorer ventured deep into the forbidden tunnels of the Paris catacombs, carrying only a handheld camcorder. The labyrinth stretches over 300 kilometers beneath the city, lined with the bones of millions, and had been off limits for decades. Yet he moved confidently, filming the skull-lined corridors and narrow passages. For most of the 40-minute tape, nothing seemed unusual, until near the end, his pace suddenly quickened. Heavy breathing echoed through the stone halls, and he seemed disorientated, stopping at junctions before breaking into a full sprint. In a panic, he dropped the camera, leaving it recording on the floor as he vanished into the darkness. The footage later circulated online and was even featured on shows like Scariest Places on Earth. To this day, the man's fate is unknown. But it's important to note, this story is largely considered an urban legend. There is no independent verification that anyone actually disappeared in the 1990s, no official missing persons report, and the original footage hasn't been published. Many researchers believe the video was likely staged or created as a paranormal horror story. But that wasn't confirmed either. Whether it's real or not, the whole thing remains mysterious. Now, if you're enjoying my videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps me creating new stories every week, and it means the world to me. Thank you so much for watching. Back in 2012, a hiker ventured into a remote snowy forest, hoping for a peaceful day among the trees. But something unusual caught his eye. At first, it was barely visible, hidden behind thick trunks, but as the hiker continued filming, the creature drew closer. It stood upright, like a human, covered in dense black fur. Just as the creature came into clearer view, the video abruptly ended. It seems the hiker decided safety mattered more than filming, quickly turning off the camera and retreating. Would you have done the same in that moment? A North Carolina landowner had set up a motion-activated trail camera along a narrow deer path, hoping to catch glimpses of local wildlife. Among the ordinary frames, one photograph captured this. A young girl standing squarely on the path, bathed in the dim light of the camera's sensor. The timestamp matched the automated capture of other wildlife images, yet no one had been near the property. The woods were private, remote, and largely inaccessible. And yet, there she was. How had she appeared there, alone in the middle of the forest, and why did she look like that? So bright. In the dead of night, a man decided to explore a remote forest in India, camera in hand. At first, everything seemed quiet. Then suddenly, he heard this. A strange snorting sound echoed from the darkness ahead. Startled, he quickly turned and ran. As he stumbled through the trees, the camera caught fleeting glimpses of a strange, pale figure following him. The shape appeared only for brief moments between the branches. Then the video suddenly cuts off. No explanation. So what did this man encounter in that forest that night? And perhaps the bigger question, why would anyone venture into such a place alone at that hour? A man had gone out to a national park on a cold autumn afternoon to take a few photographs in an open field. He snapped several pictures and eventually headed home. Later that evening, while looking through the photos, one image made him stop. In the distance, far out in the field, there appeared to be a tiny human-like figure walking across the grass. When compared to the height of the surrounding grass, the figure looked far smaller than a normal person, and the man was certain no one else had been around when he took the photos. Could it have been a child wandering alone through the park? To this day, the man still has no explanation for what he captured in that image. In the summer of 1996, Sheila Kearns was working at the historic Paradise Inn, high on the slopes of Mount Rainier National Park. It was the kind of job many young people dream of, living and working inside of one of America's most beautiful national parks, surrounded by mountains, tourists, co-workers. And yet, somehow, she would disappear without anyone realizing what had happened. The last confirmed sighting of Sheila was at a staff bonfire. It was a normal evening, nothing unusual, nothing alarming. But after that night, she was never seen again. At first, no one panicked. Seasonal employees sometimes left unexpectedly. But as time passed, something didn't add up. Her room was still intact. Her personal belongings were untouched. There was no note, no packed bags. Search teams were deployed across the park. They combed trails, wooded areas, and nearby roads. Mount Rainier is vast. Rugged terrain, thick forest, steep drop-offs. Days passed, then weeks. No sign of Sheila. Then, months later, human remains were discovered near a campground inside the park. They were identified as Sheila. Authorities ruled her death a homicide. To this day, the case leaves lingering questions. Instagram user BitoFact was hiking in the woods when he noticed something terrifying. Just in time. At first glance, the scene looks completely harmless, but as he zooms in, a perfectly camouflaged snake becomes visible. Even from just a few feet away, it almost blends into the forest floor, and he nearly stepped on it. People online identified it as a gaboon viper, a venomous species known for having one of the most potent bites in the world. Imagine what could have happened if the person filming had taken one more step. For more scary national park encounters, watch this next video.